Well, it appears Polygon just keeps getting better and better because as of a couple of days ago, they announced their official partnership with Google Cloud. And before any of you ask, this goes beyond the typical surface level stuff we find with other crypto projects where they so-called partner with Google or Google Cloud, but in reality, they just use the infrastructure as a node for a service, okay? So it's beyond that. This is a real partnership. And today, I just want to briefly touch up on what this actually means for Polygon and how bullish this actually really is. So Google Cloud and Polygon Labs have joined forces to provide developer tools and, get this, enterprise infrastructure to obviously accelerate growth across Polygon protocols. This is so important for the growth of any network. Why? Well, developers, more specifically third-party developers that come onto and want to build on a network, need to be incentivized. If you're a new network, right, and you have a really crappy foundation, aka infrastructure, you are not going to incentivize Bob, Jane, or anyone for that matter to want to come on and risk hard effort and money to build on your network. It just won't happen, right? And you see networks out there incentivizing them by having that metaphorical carrot on the end of the stick, by saying, hey, if you come join the network, we'll give you $500,000. Well, not really, but like more so about $50,000 or even $100,000 on the high side. And yes, that does incentivize some growth and it does grow the ecosystem, but ultimately you need a strong foundation. This is what ultimately brings in the most developers to a network. Of course, if you're a business in Web 2 or you're a small business or maybe just a couple people, or even if you already have like a Web3 based business or an application and you're wanting to migrate to a network, the scariest thing would be is joining it and having to like learn code and spend, obviously the less developers there are on a certain, with a different sort of like language, like for example, Solidity. There's a fair few Solidity developers out there now, but there wasn't once upon a time. And then we move further into some niches and some, projects have created their own language, which only a few developers know. So they obviously are in high demand for that network and therefore they are very expensive. So ultimately what I'm trying to get at is you want to create a place where it's very easily accessible with like highly or very, very small barriers to entry, okay? And this is what ultimately this partnership is bringing to Polygon, right? Obviously, Polygon has a pretty sound infrastructure already. They have like one of the largest, if not the largest ecosystem in all of crypto, of course. And not to mention the second kind of benefit or part of, being a really good network and incentivizing growth is having that pot at the end of the rainbow, essentially, is like, okay, come and build on this amazing infrastructure and we'll also support you as well. Now that's going to really incentivize developers, but Polygon has all this. And with this Google partnership, they're accelerating this even further. And I'm going to touch on 3 prongs that they're mainly focusing on with this partnership and why it's really important. Now, this isn't going to impact you and I. The end users aren't going to see any results from this. At least we're going to see indirect results in the next probably 5 to 10 plus years, because the more developers you have building on an ecosystem, the better the applications and the more Web 2, aka real world use cases are going to be used on that network, okay? If you guys know me and you know how I like preach about crypto investing, I talk about what's called the layer 1 flywheel a lot. And at the very end of that flywheel, you have the most important part before you obviously onboard a community, and that is third-party developers. Now, if you skip actually creating a good base and having applications built on the network through these third-party developers, the protocol won't be prosperous in perpetuity, okay? So essentially, all I'm trying to say is, in the next 5 to 10 years, we are going to find applications because of such partnerships that are going to pretty much capture most, or at least orders of magnitudes more demand than what you and I, retail investors, could ever imagine, okay, based on what we can possibly do, because we'll have tens of millions, if not billions, or even trillions of dollars floating around. All thanks to partnerships like this that are glossed over by the majority of people that don't understand the gravitas of such a thing, right? I mean, we see time and time again, as I said to you moments ago, cryptocurrencies abusing Google, Amazon, things like that, because they pretty much use them as a service. Now, this might seem like that on surface, but again, let's dive into it, okay? So, starting from the basics, Google Cloud will bring Blockchain Node Engine, its fully managed node hosting service, to the Polygon ecosystem, Polygon ecosystem, further diversifying cloud services across the ecosystem. Now, once the Blockchain Node Engine support is made available, which will probably be out in later this year, Developers using blockchain node engine will no longer have to worry about configuring or running their Polygon POS nodes. Now, if you're not familiar with Polygon, Polygon POS is pretty much their layer 2, like the main Polygon, Ethereum scaling solution. They can instead focus on growth while retaining complete control over where nodes are deployed. Now, this is pretty much a great TLDR. Essentially, this means as a developer, the barrier to entry is, of course, you're a developer. What are you focusing on? You're focusing on the application, you're focusing on the code, you're focusing on how it performs. Imagine then having to go and worry about creating nodes, right? So this will allow these developers and these businesses to save hell of a lot of time and money in trying to figure out where we're going to host our nodes and what countries and locations we're going to host these nodes in. This is pretty much saying they can host a whole bunch of nodes through the Google node engine and pop them up in any location they want in the world, right? Ideally, you want it sparsely located, probably one in every continent is the best thing to do, right? Obviously, that's going to stress test your little network there and kind of give you the best latency, real world results rather than having it all in one location, right? But essentially, that isn't the prongs, right? We're going to get into those just in a minute, right? So this is one of them. Polygon SuperNets. Now, Polygon SuperNets is pretty much Polygon's enterprise-grade solution, allowing conglomerates or multinational corporations or just even your regular business to come on and create pretty much like a layer 3 blockchain solution, just like you would like a layer 2 solution for another network or a parachain for Polkadot, right? So, by the end of Q3 of this year, Polygon Labs will enable one-click developer net DevNet deployments on the Google Cloud. Again, importantly, one click. Right? Developers who are interested in deploying a SuperNet will be able to provision a 3 to 5 node network with the simulated bridge in their virtual private cloud or VPC for the purpose of rapid evaluation of SuperNet stack, blah, blah, blah. That's just fancy words of saying they can just simply press one button and create 3 to 5 nodes on their SuperNet to stress test or test their infrastructure, right? So it's very important as a developer. That's the most scary thing. Now, I'm not a developer, but I've spoken to a few. The scariest thing to do is launch on mainnet because you're out of testnet, you're in real world, and so ultimately you're dealing with real money. And if there's a hack, for example, like a protocol called Nomad, right? Nomad, now please correct me if I'm wrong, I haven't done enough research on them in the recent times, but they were a protocol that launched and essentially they were hacked very early on, lost tens of millions of dollars, and essentially it brought down their project. Crypto is all about face value stuff. It's all about reputation and it's all about having trust in the community. And when you've lost money and you can't give that money back to people, they're not going to want to use your network ever again, no matter how much you say you've fixed that one problem. So this is integral, especially for an enterprise having that scary first mainnet. So they're obviously making this simple. Again, it's all about infrastructure. Infrastructure. You can't have end users unless you have confident developers and developers wanting to build on the network, and that's what this is providing. Now, the second prong, Polygon ZK EVM, right? So this is a new development in the Polygon world. I'm super bullish on this, right? It's so ZK, zero knowledge EVM, Ethereum virtual machine. They're essentially creating zero knowledge rollups aside from their typical Plasma scaling solution for Ethereum. So yeah, very, very bullish on this. And essentially the purpose of this partnership and why this can benefit the Polygon ZK EVM developments is here, right? Initial tests to run Polygon ZK EVMs, or again, the ZKPs on the Google Cloud, for instance, resulted in significantly faster and cheaper transactions as compared to the existing setup. So while zero knowledge proofs are great, right? They can reduce finality, they can do a whole bunch of things. They are computationally heavy, therefore, they're very expensive, right? So ultimately, cheaper ZKPs, the better. The third and final prong is fueling the next wave of the Web3 ecosystem innovation. Essentially, when we're talking about incentivizing users or developers to build on a network, you want to have a very seamless, succinct infrastructure, but you also want to have that sort of pot of cash at the end of the rainbow, right? Now, of course, you've got Polygon Ventures here being that pot of cash, right? Offering grants and things like that. So this is like the cherry on top, in my opinion, okay? So essentially, this is going to include up to $200,000 in credits for the Google Cloud and Firebase usage for up to 2 years, early access to Google Cloud Web3 products and roadmaps, blah, blah, blah. Access to a gated Discord channel with Google Cloud Web3 product and engineering teams. So pretty much, as long as an application building on Polygon is backed by Polygon Ventures, they can potentially receive this new benefit or this pretty much Google Cloud startup program, right? Now, the Google Cloud already has this program initiated and the rewards are basically on par with what they're already offering. But essentially, Polygon can be that sort of that channel into this grant for these teams that might, you know, be basically 1 in a million when they're talking about applying for it through Google. Okay, so yeah, it's just adding that cherry on top, in my opinion. Of course, if you're a developer, again, you want to make sure this onboarding process is as seamless as possible, and you're going to choose the ecosystem with the most amount of utility and functionality, which is Ethereum, right? So this is perfect, right, for Polygon. You've got a fantastic base. You've got big name partners already. And now, I mean, you've got Google, you've got infrastructure, which is even better, okay? So ultimately, guys, this is going to cover today's video. I hope you have enjoyed it. Again, it's not something we're going to see the direct results of. This is more so in the future. But just know it's definitely a good thing, especially if you're familiar with the Layer 1 flywheel. You know how important this really is. All right, guys. That's all for today's video. Hopefully you have enjoyed. If so, please leave me a like, and I'll look forward to seeing you on the next one.